Oh my God. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And welcome to our our Sunday evening program, Swinging of the Pendulum, episode 2. I know this evening you will have a wonderful time listening to an in-depth conversation with the 3 retired head teachers, and some are rehired in the old process. So I'm going to give the others a few minutes, our panelists, to get here. So we were going to start maybe in another 10 minutes or so. Thank you very much for being here, and listen to this little music as we sit back and started to think of Lost with Technology, what it's all about, what Lost with Technology is, what its meaning, what's the significance of it to these retired head teachers. Thank you. We'll be back in another 5 minutes. Hey, you log in? You log in? Yeah, but I get enough feedback when that's how it operates. I'm getting a feedback by my end. Oh, that's it. Oh, like a delay, like a delay, like a delay. I'm not. I don't know what's going on. It is mute. Not in the Zoom. I don't know why I'm getting this feedback.
Good afternoon, Miss.
I'm back. Okay, welcome back. I'm sorry what happened, but in our audience currently, there is only one of the panelists. But before I introduce the panelists, I will just give you a little rundown about the three panelists that are here with us today that will be sharing in this conversation. One is, her name is Mrs. Joy Nurse, and Joy Nurse was once a head teacher at St. John's College for a number of years. And she will be able to say more about her role at St. John's College and what is happening to her currently as a retired head teacher who was once rehired in the system and as a result of the pandemic was displaced. The other head teacher is Miss Leslyn Elliott. And Leslyn Elliott, she was once the head teacher of Annandale Secondary School, and that's on the east coast of Demerara. And her area of interest, I think, is mathematics. And she will say more about her role currently because she is actively involved in the ministry, working with others, other retired teachers, and she's rehired educators in channeling or tailoring math program for our students. And the other is one Mrs. Janice John, and Janice John was retired from F.E. Pollard Primary School, And that school is located in Georgetown, also like St. John's College. And Miss Janice John also is a pastor. So she will able to say more about her role as an educator, as a pastor, and how um, she's lost with technology, or what technology would have done for her in her community. Now we need to remember that this particular group is it's more like a minority group because no one concentrates on this group, and we would like to hear from them. So we're going to hear from these three today. Next Sunday we'll have another session with some more interesting retired, rehired educators, and they will share more than what we imagine about technology and what the technology in the pandemic and what it has done for them. So without further ado, I'll ask Miss Leslyn Elliott to open up her mic. And please note for today's session, if you need to ask any question, jot it down there at the bottom of your screen. There is a reaction icon. Just raise your hand. Keep your mics off as much as possible if you and let us have this conversation. Let us listen to them. So over to our first panelist, Miss Leslyn Elliott, who is in our midst. And I'm waiting on the others to come on board. Thank you. Over to Leslyn Elliott.
Okay, good afternoon, Madam Elliott, and to our participants who are here to support our conversation. Yes. You're not hearing me? Hello? Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, I was saying that I'm happy that we have our participants who are here to support us, to listen to our conversations, to make it more viable. Now, I'm Leslyn Elliott, as Valda said. I'm a retired head teacher, and I would like to open this session by saying that during this world crisis, because we know that this pandemic is not a Guyana crisis, it's a world crisis. So I would like to say that during this crisis, we have experienced unforeseen changes in the work environment. And these changes have triggered a self-regulation process within us as employees, and that's at various levels.
Yeah,
more
I'm not hearing.
particularly, you're not hearing, Paula?
Okay, go ahead.
You hearing? Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay, thanks. Yes, I was saying that these changes, which we did not anticipate, would have triggered a self-regulation process within us as employees. And this is at all levels of the education system. And when I say a self-regulation process, I mean a process where we have to think about the confusion we're in, think about what we don't know and have to do, think about how we're going to do it. So we have to start searching our soul to see where we are, what we know, what we can do so that we can move on. So that is why I'm saying it's a self-regulation process within us as employees. More particularly, the effects of this process is magnified in persons who are not interfacing with a lot of technology at work prior to the pandemic. And that will be for various reasons. Maybe their job description would have it entail that they do not. So now that we have been working with the crisis over a year, we have seen paths beginning to surface. So we can say, oh yes, we were once lost. So now with the swing around a year after, we are seeing paths, we are seeing where we can start cutting tracks when there are no path. Because there were many programs that were really introduced, developed to help persons to cope with the technology that we have to embrace in order to meet our, in some case, students, in some case, teachers, as needs be. So I would like to just say that as my little introductory statement. So Wally, you want me to go on? Are the other persons here as yet?
Okay, thank you, Miss Elliott. I haven't seen them as yet. Just go ahead because there is a delay. Just go ahead. Go ahead, Maslin.
All right. Okay. So to continue, when we talk about being able to search our soul so that we can regulate the processes within us and without us and those that are around us, we see employees, and we're speaking here about the Ministry of Education, particularly now, the education arena. They're continuously trying to motivate themselves because, if you don't motivate yourself to do it, we cannot guarantee that someone is there to ensure that you get the required knowledge and the required skills to grapple with this quickly advancing technological wave that wants to consume us. Because as I said earlier, we are seeing paths and we are seeing places where we can cut tracks in order to get out of the confusion, frustration that we were in at first. From my perspective, I can see two major categories of persons who would have found themselves very much lost in the waves that I mentioned, the technological waves. The first category is the unfortunates, those who do not have the equipment, or I should simply say, those who do not have the access, meaning they may not have the equipment, they may not have internet availability, or the know-how, because sometimes we can have some of the gadgets or the equipment, but we may not have the know-how to operate them. So that's one category I can see being forced to try to regulate themselves so as to fit in. The other category I see is the group comprising the older employees like me. Yeah, the other categories group comprise older persons who, as Ms. Elliott would have indicated to you, were rehired. Some of us would have used cell phones only to make and receive calls. Well, of course, there are those of us who are up and coping well with it. But how many of us are in that subcategory? That's the big question. And we have to try to push ourselves to be in that category because we know that because of the technology we have to employ, persons are dependent on us still as teachers, those in the teaching sector, persons are still dependent on them to deliver content and skills as expected. Those who are training teachers, the teachers are still looking to them for guidance, for skills, for know-how. And then to the ministry, persons are really looking to see how we can have gadgets, how we can have equipment, how we can have these tools to use so that we can also be in the know. Because if we're not in the know, well, then we will not be efficient on our job at our jobs. I think I really want to pause here so that the others, are they here yet? Miss Elliott? Have you seen
Yes.
anyone yet so that they can come in so that we can
No,
really
well,
have a
at least I can,
conversation?
that is okay. There is a feedback I'm having. So, it's a little delay, but that is okay. Now, Miss Elliott, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you clearly.
Okay. So my question to you, Miss Elliott, is what do you think? What do you think will amplify the spread of technology amongst this particular group in our society, that is the retired teachers, and make them comfortable to know that the pandemic is here, and the pandemic would have caused some amount of disruption to their lives. But we need to know, I want to know what qualities can we look at?
Okay, to answer that, I would say what exactly is needed is training and more training, because it's not the first time that you show me something, I may be able to get it. For instance, persons who would have found themselves in this category, maybe the rehired category, might have been called upon to do a workshop, to do a teaching session, but they do not know how to use the technology. So I'm saying if they're trained, then the training has to be supported. There has to be follow-up to make sure that the person has it. Because as I said, you may not get it the first time. And being in the category, when the younger folks who would have born in the technological age would have been grappling quickly with it, gone miles ahead of you, then you may not want to be in that same session to disturb them. So yes, you may have one initial training, but then you may need some small groups follow up in order to be with it. You may need some practice during the training sessions. You can be allowed to, let us say you want to work with them in uploading their stuff and do a virtual presentation where they have to share their screen and do some breakout rooms. Then you might want to do a session with them, probably a small group, and have them make them the host and have them practice those sessions so that they can be comfortable with it. Because we know the young people are just running with it. So that is what I would say to answer that. And maybe to follow up on that or to support that training, then we need to ensure that the persons in that category have gadgets that they can use, equipment that they can use. Because some persons would have phones that were not even smartphones prior to the pandemic. So you will find that they will now have to upgrade. So that is why I'm saying training, and more training and follow-up is what is needed here. So thank you.
If I can understand you clearly, you mentioned heavily that training, you said training, and more training along with follow-up, but that enhance the retired teacher to make them safe to use technology currently as the pandemic has continued to spread its wings. For me, for
It's gonna
me,
also be uh-huh.
I know training is important. I know training will boost their not even their confidence, but will help them a little way. But what I can say, what I'm seeing, that this technology would have bring about more of isolation approach, or an isolation belief. They're cause them to be isolated. Do you feel technology currently in this pandemic would have increased isolation amongst retired teachers? And
I would say yes, but not only for retired teachers. Because at the start of the pandemic,
Miss Elliott? Okay, I don't know what's going on. Miss Elliott? Miss Elliott? Okay, I am gonna just go, maybe Miss Elliott, this what's happening here at Guyana with technology. But isolation, it's not retired teachers only affected by isolation. Isolation is a terminology or a point and becomes an action where all teachers are affected by this whole pandemic, and technology is not making it easier for those who don't have the know-how to get on board with the technology. So I commend her when she spoke about training and more training that is needed. But the retired teachers don't only need training and more training. They need to have additional resources to support them along the line. One thing came out of a discussion that I had with some retired teachers is that they look at this all because of the level of technology. They would have developed a sense of loneliness. And when you look at loneliness, it brings out more depression. It brings out depression. It brings out health problems. It brings out how they interact with when they interact with their seniors in the communities. So we cannot look at loneliness and isolation by itself. So we need to find loneliness, isolation, with health and wellness. We need to also look at the factors, what these educators will have done to come out of this loneliness. And some things that they would have looked at how to maintain their health. And some of the educators decided that they will not allow technology to steal their lives. They will not allow the COVID to capture their thoughts and their own well-being. So what they would have done, they would have started to change their approach towards life. One mentioned that for him, he turned to gardening to maintain his sanity. The other one said that she looked at community building. So I am going to stop here for a while. I don't know if the other panelists are in. I'll just check and see if they're here. And let us have a little discourse about how their change of lifestyle would have helped them with coping with technology and survive during this COVID. So I'm gonna stop here for a minute and check to see if the other panelists are here.
Voila, I was knocked off because of internet problems, but I'm on now, but you can continue to check to see if the others are here.
Oh, so you're gonna continue because we're talking about isolation, loneliness, and you were.
Yes, I was at the point where I was saying that with the onset of the pandemic came isolation, and isolation to a great extent, to an extent where it began to affect our mental health. You may have persons who would have been isolated at home due to COVID, due to the virus, or because the country was shut down. You may have persons whose relatives had to be quarantined at an institution and they had to be isolated. They could not have had visitors, so they experienced severe isolation and depression too, came with that. We were in our homes and some of us could not use our equipment, our smart TV or even smartphones to the fullest. We could not have logged in on certain sites because we did not know how to do it. So that in itself caused more isolation in the home now. You're at home with your relatives, but still you're kind of isolated too. So we had isolation from different angles. You want to add anything to that, Vala?
Seem like Voila having a technical problem.
I am back, sorry.
We're taking turns coming off and on.
I am telling, right, sorry about that.
So is anyone else here? Is Joy or Janice on?
Joy was having issues, right. So I'm sorry about that. So let us have a little discourse because I wasn't sure I missed out. But as an administrator, as a retired administrator who is rehired in the system, I need to find out how your skills, either your skills increasing or you are able to utilize that skill as a result of the pandemic. And I want to know if you are lost in the old utilizing technology.
All right, I was not lost, but I was confused in the beginning. But one of my friend was lost. So I had to help her. Fortunate for me, I was working with some of it before. And at the onset of the pandemic, because of our current engagement at that time, we were using the technology. We were sharing information via the internet. We were meeting virtually. And so when the pandemic came, we continued along that line. Then we were engaged in sessions to boost our confidence and our competence along that area. So we were able, those of us who were not lost but confused, we were able to come out of the confusion. And at the same time, we were able to help persons who were lost to find their way, meaning that we showed them how to use the technology. For instance, we showed them if you're doing a workshop and you have to share virtually, we show them how you will share your screen, how you will have your discussion, how to create breakout rooms, have your little group discussion like we do face-to-face. And so we were able to show them all of that. So even though I wasn't lost, I knew persons who were lost and I was able to help them also to find their way. That is why I said that being in the middle of the pandemic or after a year now, we are seeing trap paths and we are seeing places we can cut trails.
Okay, good. I'm happy that you would have executed those strategies to help those who really needed your help or those who were lost. So you're saying here that, and just bear in mind that there are their teachers, their students out there, and they need to know the importance of peer-to-peer conversation and peer networks. So you would have strengthened the network so that your colleagues, so your colleagues would have not left behind, but were able to move forward. So you drag him or her through. Now, do you think the same?
Before you go, Vola, before you go to the next question, I can also tell you of another category of persons who are lost. So of course, I was not able to work with them, but I can tell you, and to me, they have not even found their way out as yet. When you look at some of the schools and the teachers, there are schools where teachers would not have interfaced with their children for as long as the pandemic started. Because one, they didn't have the technology, they didn't have the know-how, and probably some of them on their own accord just didn't make the effort. But I know for sure there are schools that had no interface. Then for three schools, I also know that because of the technology, many of the teachers found it real difficult to get work to the nursery school children because of the gadgets that they need to use. So only those who were fortunate to have the gadgets, that is what I've been told, only those who were fortunate to have the gadgets would have meaningful everyday work done. So you may continue.
Right, and that indeed is and that's a struggle. That's a real gray area. And as an administrator, you will see the need. You will see the need for the early childhood educators and the early childhood students, how they struggle. So you know that they indeed are lost in this pandemic, and they're lost not as a result of the technology, but they're lost as a result of COVID, and they cannot make the kind of connection. That is what you're saying. And studies would have proven that this particular group indeed is at risk. So what I would like to know from you as a rehired teacher, how do you see, or what is your vision for this particular group of educators, as the retired educators, early childhood retired educators? Do you see them mushrooming currently to help the little ones, or to utilize their skills maybe in the religious organizations so that our students cannot leave behind? Do you see that? Or if, how?
What we're actually seeing is the willingness to involve them, to include them and move forward. But we are seeing a void. And that is what is separating the students from the willingness to move forward. Because the nursery school children, some of them would have done virtual nursery school, or I should say virtual nursery school years, and not the school in itself. Because if they didn't have the gadgets, the know-how, the technology, then they would have been missing out. So they would have missed out part of year one, entire year two, then they would have found themselves in the grade one of the primary school. And that in itself would have them at a great disadvantage, because we know Piaget spoke about the developmental stages that are so important to children, especially at that, in those formative years. So they would have missed out on all our social interaction and all that they're supposed to have there. So I am seeing that the structure is willing, but it's really, really weak because it lacks the technology, it lacks the physical equipment that they need, and to meet the number of persons or the category and the competence of the persons to roll it out to get it to everybody. That's lacking. So I cannot say that I cannot say that I am seeing a plain or a clear path through which they can move forward. I'm not seeing that clear path right now.
And that should be troubling if there isn't a clear path.
It is.
So it should be troubling. And it's troubling because you would have had how many years of experiences in the education system? And you also you taught at a primary school, and you know what is happening there, and secondary school, and now you are at an institution where you are helping to make it work. But what about those, because there isn't a path, but what about those who see the mountain in front of them, know that that is a mountain, and don't have the know-how? Do you think, and I'm coming back to this question, do you think religious organizations like churches, the temples, the mosques, do you see them playing a role to help the retired teachers to utilize their administrative skills, to build their members, to build their confidence, and to remember what Piaget said, focus on cognitive development? Do you see that? And how can it be done?
But frankly, I haven't interacted much with members of those religious organizations. So I will not be able to say how much they are for it, but I know physically on everyday chatting or conversations, we know they're encouraging verbally. We know that, but I don't know how much you're going into it to help their members. But I know they do this verbal encouragement. But then sometimes you think of it, the encouragement to go where and on what medium.
You know, because when we think about technology and how you lost in technology, we know that there are different categories that are responsible for the different users of technology. And Roger spoke about the masses and the role of the masses within a society and how people buy into the masses. So when you have these religious organizations, right? I am not sure, as a result of COVID, no one was prepared for it. So everyone was displaced. But I was told that this is not a retired teacher, but this is a concerned citizen of the community, goes to one of the churches in the community and reached out to one of the ministers, and the minister bluntly denied, said no, they're not going to open up to allow, and then the church is Wi-Fi. So if you are a retired teacher, want to work along with the young minds and the younger minds so that the little ones we can strengthen their cognitive ability. And there is a church, there is a role of organizations or institutions to help to build the confidence in your people. How can we, I don't want you to repeat, how can we move forward as a people? How can we help our retired teachers not to be, just to be strong or to be stronger. Now, if the minister, I'm going to the church and the minister said, no, I can't allow you here to do this work. What is going to happen? What will happen? How are we moving forward? Is that a path? That is a clear, for me, that is a clear path of help. But if you are going to say, I can't do it, then where are we going? You know, another thing I want to touch on, I don't want you to go, another thing I want to touch on is schools have had the feeding program. And this feeding program was taught immensely as a retired head teacher. I'm sorry, I'm not going to use the word retire. As a head teacher, how do you see our kids in the community? What are your feelings or what are your views about this particular group, the kids? Because the feeding program cut. What is going on there?
You know, my views may not be what others share, but they're my views, right? I think that from the time COVID had started and schools were closed, the feeding programs were there, they should have continued to provide sustenance at the schools and have students go collect on a weekly basis. As it relates to that feeding program. That is what I think. Otherwise, I don't see another means except of giving cash to persons. But I think because of the schools that had certain feeding programs, because you had different types of feeding programs in the schools too, they could have provided the stuff there for the parents and teachers to collect. It would have been a little more than what they used to have, which would have been good for the season that we're in.
Right. And you know, that is critical, and it's a point that it's the human part of us. We must know that hunger is real. And because it is real and pandemic came unexpectedly, and no one thinks about these major programs. The other thing I want to zero in on.
Before you go to the other thing, before you go to your other point, Paula.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that the community, the persons in the community, be they retired persons or even young persons, could have learned from some of the religious persons who were trying to get on the drive or on the go. Because there were some churches that opened up a little. I know of, you said one was reluctant to, but I know of some churches that opened a little so that they could have had their sessions online. And they learned how to share a screen or whatever. So persons looking on could have learned that and done the same. Or those same religious groups, when they know how to do it, they can say, call persons together and say, look, we'll teach you all how to do the same thing I'm doing here now for you. I'm preaching via the means, so I'm going to show you how you can do it also with smaller groups so that you can have your prayer meetings or you can have your own community groups going to. Yes, Violet. So you can move on to your next point.
Good. And that's a very, very valid point, because in the groups you can now utilize your skills. And I'm positive that in all religious organizations you will find retired head teachers. You will not retire head teachers alone. You will find retired teachers who are willing to share, who are willing to do so much, who are willing to help the congregation and also help the community. Now, This is my final talks for you today and those who are listening, and then I'll ask. It says, as a retired head teacher, what are your views? What do you see, or that what do you see educators, current educators need to move forward, or to how they, sorry, or how they can use technology moving forward? Because technology, the type of technology is here, it's not going anywhere. So how do you see they're going to use this whole tool?
As you said, the technology is here, it's not going anywhere. That is so true. And, you know, my own imagination is telling me that after the pandemic would have receded, we will no longer get back to this. We will not throw away the technology. We will keep those same virtual modes of teaching and learning. We may go back to the classroom face to face in many cases, but those virtual modes will not be tossed aside. So I am saying that the training that persons need and should get now will be very, very necessary, vital, and for after the pandemic also. I think I missed a part of what you were asking. So can you repeat what you said just now, what you asked just now? Vola, I had missed a part of what you were asking. So can you repeat what you were saying, please?
No, I was just saying, and I like your point, is how to move forward in the pandemic, because there are educators who are online and they would like to know how they can move forward without lost with technology.
It comes back to what I mentioned earlier about self-regulating our behaviors, where we were saying that we have to be self-motivated. We have to be motivated to want to know. We cannot sit and wait for persons to come and say, look, Vola, today you need to learn this in order to move ahead in the next 10 years. We need to go after it. There are courses that are offered free. So we need to seek out those courses and try to. We need to get our colleagues who know to help to teach us so that we can learn. And those are simple ways that are not expensive that we can seek out in order to move ahead with the technology, because the technology is going to get more and more technical. It's not going to come back to what we had 20 years ago. So that is why we need to make sure we learn it now. And as I mentioned just now, after the pandemic and we get back face to face, however long it takes, we will still need these virtual modes. Our classrooms will also be transformed by then. So I'm urging persons, be they retired persons or young persons who are still in the system, I'm urging you to seek the knowledge, seek the skills, and invest in equipment that you will need to use. If you have a smart TV, let your kids know how to use that television to the maximum. Let them know they can do their research right there. They can Google, they can search and everything right there. Show them how to use it. You will need to invest. Rather than investing in some personal items for ourselves, we can make that sacrifice and invest in equipment that can benefit the entire household. And more so the children who are right now lost, many of them who are right now lost. Because when we think about the ways in which they're being taught via the worksheet, via the distance mode and whatever ways, when we think about that, we know that it's not reaching everybody. It's not reaching everybody at all. We know that. So some of them are still lost. So I'm saying to us here, let us learn the technology so we can help. Even if the help that we learn to do is just for our own family members, then we're still helping somebody. They will go there eventually and help somebody else. You know, if each one teach one, each one help one, we will get a far way. So let's learn something and teach somebody it and ask them to do the same, pass it on. So much for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Leslyn. Thank you, Leslyn. I know you would have, the two of us had to carry the program because the others do have issues
Yes.
going on. Yes, but we can safely say each one teach one. Each one teach one.
And we
Here
leave here with
teaching.
that and we do it.
Together we can get it done. And I am here as a resource person. Leslyn is in the community as a resource person. Yes, Joy Nurse is a resource person. Dennis John as a research. They're all in our society. We are all here to work with you. I am here to strengthen what Leslyn and the others would have Leslyn said and the others would have mentioned is that we need to focus first on our health. We need to know that changes are inevitable. We need to know, as retired teachers, we need to know that innovations real, that the fusion of innovations comes with a charge. And the charge is that you must invest. As the presenter said, invest. You have a television at home, let the younger minds help you. Please don't left behind. Don't fall out of the race. We are here to help you, and we are going to continue to help you. I thank you. I thank you for being here. If anyone wants to say anything, you can just raise your hand. You want to share your thoughts. But as for now, I will, in another 5 minutes, I will bring the curtain down. Go ahead. If anyone, just raise your hand.
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For a quick, I am in the UK, but for a quick technology question or technology statement, Dr. Paula didn't mention that she is broadcasting other than just having a Zoom meeting.
Oh, yes.
So she is broadcasting. So that is technologies that that she's using. It's different from what you are accustomed to. And that technology that she's using right now to broadcast is the same system that the television stations would be using. Right. So she didn't introduce you all to that and to see all our fancy work. But technology is getting simpler. So you gotta be self-taught. You can be self-taught if you're into it, but you have to be into it because this is the way how the world is. The whole world is gone digital. And for Guyana, on those undeveloped country like Guyana, we only into the technology now are the teachers because of the pandemic. So don't get caught up. Continue to research technologies. There are tons and tons of technologies out there that you can be self-taught and just encourage yourself and everyone around you. Catch up on technology. because there is where the world is. The
Thank
whole
you. I
world
did
is
not
digital.
remember. Thanks. I didn't remember to let you know. I personally use this method so that you know, as a retired teacher, don't get lost. Don't be lost. We are going to try everything and you will be on top of your game. You will not be lost in technology. What you're going to do, you are going to keep sailing on. And yes, I am using a broadcasting system. Thank you for that.
And yes, we are going to learn something and teach somebody and ask the person to have the repeater going.
Yes.
That's the only way we can get it right.
Each one teach one.
Right.
Okay, each one teach one. So we're coming to the end of our program. Thank you very much.
Yes, you gotta promote what you're doing, Dr. Volder. Let them know that this system is you are using Zoom and also you're broadcasting into YouTube at the same time. So let them understand that technology is all it is. You're using three systems in one right now.
In your living room. The conversation will continue next week at 5 p.m. Let us share the link, share the word. Next week I'll be having some more important educators. For me, they were lost because no one remembered their names after so many years serving the country. So I'm happy to bring them on so that they can share their thoughts. So I give you thanks for coming on and let me see you next week, Sunday, 5 p.m. in your living room. Thank you, and thank you.
Thank you for having me on, Dr. Elliott.
Thank
and
you.
Thanks for the support and participants.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the role, Ms. Leslyn Elliott. Thank you.